I'm so happy to be here. And today I would like to tell you my story and think over with you what's the future of e-learning. E-learning, you may ask, and you're right, because we have a lot of different ways of teaching. For example, teaching in this traditional way in classroom. So why e-learning? And I need to admit that this guy in the middle, that's me some time ago, because after over 5 years of teaching in the traditional way, in the international custodian bank of financial instruments, I realized that big companies are changing their approach and classroom training is not so common anymore. So I already took my decision and I would like to show you what was the reason. So just before we answer the question, what's the future of e-learning, let's think over, is e-learning the future at all? So here I would like to analyze 4 different aspects. First of all, starting with time. Time nowadays is a very precious commodity that we can compare to money. And what's the difference between this training that we deliver in the traditional way in the classroom? So let's assume we have, for example, 30 new hires to train a month, and then because of the classroom capacity, we are able to train only 15 people at once, and also the training lasts 3 days, but we need also 2 additional days for the preparation. So all that together gives us 960 hours a year, and we have to remember that we have maximum number of people we are able to train. This is 360. And what is the online equivalent of the same content? So let's assume that to prepare the online equivalent of 1 day of classroom training, we need about 1 month. So in total, we will receive 480 hours a year, but we need to remember that we have no limits of people we can train. So here you can see the difference. And what doesn't mean all this data? It simply means money. So when talking about the traditional way of teaching, 960 hours a year, it is 0.5 full-time employee. Whereas the online version, it is 0.25 full-time employees. So as you can see, numbers are able to defend by themselves, and you can see this difference. Okay, so the third aspect here, it is quality. And when we think about this training delivered in the traditional way, we think that trainers should have both, not only the expert knowledge, but also presenting skills. But it's not always the case. And here e-learning eliminates these worries, because the content can be presented and prepared of course, by the specialist, by the professionalist, and then it can be presented it can be presented and designed by a training designer. So here we can see that e-learning eliminates these worries. And then when moving to retention, I would like to show you 2 different researches. First of all, at the end of 19th century, German philosopher Ebbinghaus presented this curve of forgetting or remembering. And what is quite interesting, after 1 day when the knowledge was presented, we can remember only 50% of that. So that's not a lot. And sometime later, the American scientist Edgar Dale presented this pyramid where we can observe that when we absorb more senses, then we are able to remember more. So just at the top of this pyramid, we have just reading, symbols. But when we add to that listening and we can add voice, then we are able to remember more. The best result we will receive by learning, when we can learn by doing. So then this percentage is the best. Okay, and all this one is very well recapped by the Chinese philosopher Confucius with words, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. What all that means in context of e-learning? E-learning allows us to include a lot of different ways of delivering and showing this content. We can include voice, we can include text, and also a lot of different interactions. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we are able to answer the question that yes, e-learning is the future. So right now, let's think over what's this future of e-learning. And here, let's analyze, first of all, who will be the audience in the future, then where will be the best place for them to learn, and what will be the most convenient time to do it, and finally, what will be the best way to pass the knowledge. So first of all, who will be the audience in the future? As published by governance studies at Brookings report, by 2025, millennials will make up 75% of the workforce. And who are millennials? I'm a millennial, so let me tell you more about myself. We are also called as Generation Y because we ask why very often, and by default we do not agree with all common rules. And as mentioned by most sources, we are born between 1980 and 2000. Then we were growing up simultaneously with the development of technology. So I can remember first computers, Commodore, Atari, up to the latest version of Apple. Unfortunately, I don't know yet but I hope I will be able to do it in the near future. And finally, mobile devices. It is something connected with us strongly. So it is on mobile phone. It is also called as sixth finger, or for example, third hand. And do you know we have some different civilization diseases connected with that? For example, we have selfie elbow because of stretching out an arm in order to take a selfie. Then we have also tech neck from technology because of looking at posts and verifying what's going on. Then we have wrist tightness because of surfing on the internet with our mouse. And finally, the most common one, it is smartphone thumb because of sweeping right, left posts. So here we are, and we know our audience better. So right now, let's verify how do we learn. And we adopt new technology 2.5 times faster than previous generations. That's interesting. 53% are ready to give up their sense of smell rather to give up their mobile device. 56% will not accept job offer from the company that bans social media. Then 94% are able to stay longer at work under the condition this time is devoted to development. And finally, 22%. For 22% of them, training development is the most important aspect of their employer. And then with 19%, we have flexible hours. And finally, with 14%, we have financial bonuses. So as you can see, learning development is even more important for future audience, more important than financial bonuses. Okay, so we already know our audience better, our future audience better. So right now, let's verify what will be the best place for them to learn. And modern organizations should meet learners where they already are. And do you have any ideas where are our learners? They should be. Yes, they should be at work, of course. But another place where we can meet them. Facebook, so generally social media. And in Poland, as published by We Are Social, Facebook and YouTube are the most popular social medias, but then Twitter, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Instagram are becoming more and more popular as well. Also, quite interesting information published by Nick Van Dam in his Next Learning Unwrapped book. It is that 10% of our learning, it is something we plan and it is structural learning. Whereas 90%, it is something not structured at all, it's something spontaneous. And for example, here we have networks, social learning. So for example, when we ask a question on the forum, then we have also on-demand learning. So when we have new project at work and you have to acquire new knowledge for that and find some questions to manage with this problem. And finally, we have also career learning because we learn also from feedback while during coaching, mentoring. Okay, so we know better where we will be able to meet them in the future. So right now, let's verify what will be the best time to pass this knowledge. And as published by LinkedIn Learning Workplace Report, 68% prefer to work at work, prefer to learn at work, 58%. I didn't listen what I said, so so let's skip this one. Okay, so 58% prefer to work at their own pace, and 49% prefer to do it at the point of need. So as you can see, this data is not excluding each one. We can do all of that all together. So we can learn at work, we can do it at our own pace, and also we can do it at the point of need. Okay, and here, as published by The Independent, the time that the average Briton is able to focus on, and in my opinion, the average Pole as well, is, do you have any ideas for how long are we able to focus on something? 3 minutes. 8 seconds. 2 years. Okay, so we have lots of very different answers. So I just hoped that maybe this picture could be somehow suggestive, because we are able to focus on something for 14 minutes, unless we are doing the financial meeting, because then we are able to focus only for 10 minutes. And while watching TV, after even 7 minutes, we are checking what's going on on our mobile phone. Okay, so we already know that we have not a lot of time to pass this knowledge. So we know who will be the audience in the future, where we will be able to meet them, and also how much time will we have. So here with the answer comes micro-learnings, and that's the most popular trend with 48%. And this micro-learning should be short, up to 5 minutes, should be focused on the particular problem, and should present knowledge in a captivating and appealing way. So let me show you some examples, some tips, tricks, and good practices when talking about e-learning. First of all, we should present the material in an easy way. And my question to you, what's your first association connected with this picture? Music. Okay, music, why not? And what's the first text expansion connected with this abbreviation FA? Soap, yes, that's the best answer. I'm pretty sure that organizer will notice that. Okay, and I need to admit that in Google you are able to find about 48 different text expansions of this abbreviation, and none of them was mine text expansion, because when I was working in the International Custodian Bank, it was pretty obvious for me that FA stands for Fund Accountant. And then when I moved and I was realizing a project for CRM system, it was pretty obvious that this abbreviation stands for Functional Analyst. So as we can see, based on our previous experience, we have completely different understanding of things. So here, the intention of the author is to present you this particular music note Fa. But as you can see, we may have completely different association based on our previous experience. So very good practice is to avoid misunderstanding, and all the time it's possible give the whole understanding and whole context of different things. Then we should animate instead of writing. So let's imagine the situation in the learning. You have this short sentence, please press enter to move forward. It is simple, it's not very complicated at first glance. However, we need to engage somehow our brain, and it can be better, for example, with the animation like that. Because then it is more intuitive, and you can see that you need to press this arrow to move ahead. Okay, so right now I will show you what's the typical e-learning. So here, okay, so that's the good practice we should have. So we should animate instead of writing. And here we will have the typical e-learning. So first of all, first slide, so here we have e-learning from recycling. At the very beginning we have theory. And then when we know this theory, we are moving to the quiz, and here we are resolving the quiz. In reality, it is that we skip the theory and we go directly to quiz, because we need a problem, we need challenge. And so let's reverse the order and first of all put a problem to resolve. So here we have the same learning, but first of all, at the very beginning, we have problem to resolve. And we are not able to skip this one and go ahead unless we do it correctly. So right now we can learn something, and then just in case we have some gaps, we can fill in that with the theory. So good practice is to challenge with a problem to resolve. Okay, and right now, let me check. Okay, right now I'd like to invite you to the experiment. In a few seconds, I will display you a short video with a lot of different colors of dots. And my question to you, I would like to ask you to count only red dots. Okay? Ready, steady, go. Okay, so how many dots did you count? 11. Okay, that's the correct answer, 11. But I was able to notice some hands in the air. Good for you, but not all of you. So let us play this video one more time, because I would like to show you that on the bottom of this video, we can see the sentence, raise your hand if you can see this text. Okay, and you were not able to notice this one because I directed your attention to something else. And it is something we can use in e-learning, and we should do it carefully. So good practice is to direct the audience attention carefully and deliberately, because we have this big power. The training designer has this big power to direct this attention. Okay, and we can also use this one. The second simulation here, we have an example from Excel, and here the task is to count people who jog using pivot table. So here we can see the real-life simulation. This mouse moving, it is something real. And as soon as the answer is correct, then we can move ahead. If we don't know where to click, then we can see this prompt highlighted with red color. And this is how we can, this is very good solution, how we can learn our learner the procedure, how to process how to proceed something step by step, the instructions step by step. So here we have also real environment, because we put our learner in the context, because we present them Excel, so this real environment, here they are already in the context, so they can touch the problem. So as you can remember from our pyramid, when we engage different senses, here we can feel this problem and we can touch this. So we should use real environment as soon as possible, because then it is better for us to learn something well. Okay. And these previous examples, as I mentioned, it was to show learners how to proceed and how to follow the instructions step by step. But it's not always the purpose, because the same result we can obtain in many different ways. It was presented with pivot table, but the same, so we can count people who jog. We can receive in many different ways, for example, with formula count if, etc. So we should always adjust the approach to our purpose, because maybe sometimes it is better to make our learners think and analyze the problem and to find a solution by themselves, rather than instruct them how to follow the procedure step by step. So we always need to think about what's the main purpose of this training and what we want our learner to teach. And here we have real-life simulation from call center. Let's imagine this guy is calling with IT problem, and this girl is trying to help him. And what is important here, first of all, we have this context. So we can think that we are this guy or maybe this girl, depending on who is the audience. But also what is quite important in a simulation like that, we can include a human aspect. So very good practice is to use real-life simulation to teach the behavior, because sometimes we also teach this one. And what is also important in this simulation, you were not able to hear the voice, but as mentioned in this pyramid, we should always include different senses. So here in this simulation, a voice should be very important to edit. Okay, so let's recap. The future audience will be millennials. Do we have millennials at the workplace right now? Yes, you think so? I'm an example, so the answer, I think, is yes. Social media, it will be the best place, it will be a good place to find them. Can we observe importance of social media today? Yes, sure. Here we have an example. Okay, and adjusted ways to pass the knowledge. It will be something required in the future to pass this knowledge. It is something we can see today, that we should adjust these ways to pass the knowledge. I think that yes. So as you can see, the future of e-learning is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justyna. Thanks a lot. Okay, do we have questions to Justyna? Yes, we do.
Hi, I'm Kasia. I'm from Nokia, and we have problems with training, as everyone, I believe. But the problem with training is that with a real teacher, you can ask a question, what I'm doing now. And the biggest problem of e-learning is that it doesn't allow us asking the question. So I believe that is it what you, when you are designing e-learning, do you consider any feedback or anything that the person who is doing this e-learning can ask a question later on, because not everything is clear from the very beginning?
Yeah, I think that this is more the question about how it's organized in general, because e-learning is that something particular we have, but we have to put it somewhere. And we have also e-learning platforms like LMS or something like that. And I think that this is question how this one is organized and built. Because in my opinion, this one should be built more like social media, so that we have video, and behind that or maybe next to it, we have this possibility of conversation, so that we can ask the question referring to this e-learning, and then just in case something is not enough and something was maybe presented not in not enough clear way or something like that, we can complete this knowledge, and just in case we need to develop this learning and to reorganize it somehow, we are always taking into account, and we update this e-learning on a regular basis.
Hi, I'm Natalia. Hi, Justyna. So my question is, I was just wondering, how do we encourage the users to learn regularly, like to practice like every Sunday, let's say?
I think that we are not able to do so, because I think that e-learning should defend by itself, and it is a good way if we can recommend this e-learning. So e-learning should be so good that we will hear from different ways that let's do this one, because then we will be able to manage with this problem, etc., etc. So it should be so strong that we shouldn't, so the approach is from completely different ways, so we shouldn't be somehow forced or motivated to do so, but it's from the other hand, so we should want to do it. That's how I can understand it.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Hi, my name's Rich. I'm from Roche. I'm a technical writer, and I also used to be a teacher as well. You mentioned one of the statistics was that nearly 50% of users want that training at the time of need. So they already come to your training with that sense of frustration that they want a quick answer. How do you balance that with all of the technological constraints of animations and slowing down the process of knowledge delivery by having a 15-minute training?
That's a very difficult question, because when talking about when talking about training, technical training, it is very short time when we have to pass this knowledge and interact, etc., etc. So sometimes, from my perspective, it is very challenging to have this 5 minutes reached, and honestly, it is not always successful with that. Sometimes it is longer. And the question is, how do we deal with one more time?
Yeah, dealing with frustrated users when they need that knowledge immediately.
Okay, so I'm not sure that they're frustrated, because they do it at their own pace, and also in this moment the most convenient for them. So as soon as so I can imagine they are relaxed in front of the screen. So I feel and I think that they are not frustrated at all. They are maybe more frustrated in the classroom when I'm asking a question or something like that. But when doing e-learning, I think that they need this knowledge and they are challenged to find this knowledge, because very often when we have completely new project or something new, we have to find answers for that. We are reaching learning by ourselves and we are not forced for that one, so that's why we are not frustrated.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Oh my.
Okay, sorry. But
That will be the last question, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Sławek, I'm also working for Roche as a technical writer and sometimes as a knowledge management specialist. Anyway, the question for me is that the thing that was most boring for me in terms of learning, let's say, was the introduction for the new company. Let's say I am appointed by the company and the first part of the training is always, now we will tell you something about our company. We are working like this and like that. And well, my problem was always that I thought this time, well, please stop telling me about the company. Please teach me something.
Okay.
So how it goes with the e-learning?
Okay, so honestly, I have never included the advertisement in my e-learning. So I always go directly to the content and to the material I would like to pass, because I can remember I have not a lot of time to do so. So I think that that's just the way different people prepare different learning in different way. Honestly, it is not my approach at all to pass the introduction about the company or something at the very beginning, because it depends what's the purpose. Because sometimes we need to present the company, and of course then we need to do it. But sometimes when the purpose is to pass the knowledge and to teach something new users about the platform that is new in the company, and we need about 1,000 people to learn that, then we have no time to introduce the company, etc. So we have very short e-learning sessions of 5 minutes, and then we pass through different issues. And I would rather say that no, the introduction of the company shouldn't be included then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Justyna.
Thank you.